Hello, ladies and gentlemen. In today's video, I want to talk about something I dislike when it comes to this game's Nova Flares. Now, overall, they're a pretty big positive for the game, as if you invest enough into a specific character slash team, make them last like 2 years until they get their Nova Flare. After they receive this Nova Flare, it's likely that they'll get probably another year and a half of juice in them, basically giving you 3.5 years for a very solid team investment, right? But the issue I have with Nova Flares in HSR is specifically how they are chosen. I've talked about this before, and a lot of people still aren't really aware of this, but for you guys to understand how characters get Nova Flared, the most important thing to think of before anything else is how it benefits Hoyo, whether it be selling a new character or selling a multitude of other characters who already exist. Prime examples here are a lot of the main pushes. These are the ones who usually get special treatment in terms of Nova Flares and teammates. We have characters like Acheron getting M-Blade and a buff sometime in this version soon. You have more obvious ones that have actually already happened, like Firefly, and Firefly getting her Dahlia and then her own Nova, right? And then you have Cassie, she's getting every single teammate in the book. You have Phanon. These two are some of the highest, at the top of the list contenders for getting Novas in probably mid version 5. And it's not necessarily anything to do with that. These are the characters who are the weakest, and these are the characters who will get buffed. It's that these characters benefit the game in some way in terms of making some more money, meaning buffing them is of higher priority than certain other characters, even if those other characters are weaker than the one they're buffing. And what this leads to happening is making much less popular characters much less likely to get buffed. And this is really tough for a lot of people out there who have invested into, once again, these not so popular characters. Some good examples I can probably give here. One of the more notable ones, because a lot of people like his design, is Boot Hill, right? It is really unlikely that Boot Hill is going to get a Nova Flare anytime soon as a break DPS, because while Firefly received hers, the Nova Flaring Firefly made significantly more sense. Apparently it's a real statistic that has been leaked by Anon. I believe he leaked this like a year ago, a little under a year ago, that supposedly the amount of active break mains, Firefly mains, make up like 99% of that. So that's why Hoyo decided to completely give up actually giving Boot Hill or Rappa a Nova and only focus on Firefly, and that's also why Dahlia has a bit of an extra bias towards Firefly, unlike Rappa and Boot Hill. So it's very unlikely that Boot Hill will receive a Nova, and even if he does, it will be much later in comparison to when Firefly got hers, which leaves the mains of Boot Hill in the dust for quite a long while. And this doesn't only apply to Boot Hill. It's likely that this will apply to Ling Sha, it's likely that this will apply to Rappa, it's likely that this will apply to Yun Li, right? These much less popular characters who are harder to buff and then sell another teammate are not going to get Novas likely anytime soon. The only one here I can imagine maybe getting a buff if they were to actually release a new teammate for it is this counter archetype with Yun Li. I could see her maybe getting Nova Flared if they if they created a character who fully synergizes with the counter archetype and is even able to specifically buff them in some way. However, I'm going to be honest, I feel like HSR has really just left this entire thing behind. They don't care that much about counterattack anymore, and even the technical counterattack characters that we have these days, for example like Mblade or My Day, they're basically just their own main DPSs, or their supports who work in a way where it's Fua-esque, like Mblade. So I do feel like they've kind of just left the counter stuff completely behind, and I doubt they're gonna touch up on it again really anytime soon, meaning the chances of Yun Li getting a Nova Flare are really low. And if you guys are still not believing in me about this, oh, they only create Nova Flares to benefit themselves and make more money off of it, a lot of people originally were really hyped for the fact that we were getting a standard character buffed in Welt, but as I've mentioned in previous videos, if you really think about it, this isn't to be generous and a sign that they are going to buff every standard character soon now. All this is a sign of is the fact that they are novaing Welt to get people into buying Himiko, who has some of the most broken Eidolon and Lycone investment in this entire version. Because she has a free-to-play team, you end up getting fooled into believing it's a great investment, and that's when they catch you, you pull Himiko, eventually E0 Himiko feels mid at the end of this version, she gets a rerun, and now you're enticed into pulling her E2 and S1, hopefully you lose, and you actually spend money on the game, is what Hoyo is hoping for, right? In my opinion, Hoyo looks at all of these Nova Flares in a lens of how beneficial would it be for us, and of course it also benefits the player. It's not that it doesn't benefit the player to some extent, but it needs to benefit the game to a certain extent as well, otherwise they usually won't take action. This is the thing I just don't like about the Nova Flares. I don't know when Yun Li will ever get a Nova Flare. I don't know when Rappa or Boot Hill will ever get a Nova Flare. I don't know when Jade will ever get a Nova Flare. They could never get Nova Flares because they're much less popular characters who are much harder to actually be valuable in Hoyo's eyes in terms of making money for them, because even if they Nova Flare them, a lot of people just wouldn't care because the ownership rate isn't high enough and their popularity isn't high enough. Now this is a common thing amongst all games at the end of the day. The more popular something is, the more the game is going to play into it, since at the end of the day, they are trying to grow and continue making as much money as possible. There's no point in trying to be a everything for everyone type game if doing one thing specifically makes them, let's say, 5 times less money than doing another. I completely understand it from a business perspective. This is more so just me personally complaining that there's going to be a lot of characters from past, future, and current day who I like, who are very unlikely to ever get the same Nova Flare treatment as a lot of these main push characters. And this kind of ties back to my recent video I made where I complained about main push treatment and how I hate the fact that main pushes in this game get so many extra advantages even outside of meta speak, right, compared to the rest of the HSR characters. It just makes me a little bit disappointed for what could be for a lot more of this game's cast. But that's just my opinion. Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great night. Peace out.